Welcome back to the Matter of Facts podcast on the Prepper Broadcasting Network. We talk prepping, guns, and politics every week on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Go check out our content at mwfpodcast.com on Facebook or Instagram. You can support us via Patreon or by checking out our affiliate partners. I'm your host, Phil Rabley, and my co-host, Andrew Bobo, is on the other side of the mic, and here's your show. And welcome back to the Matter of Facts podcast. Phil and Andrew are sitting here on a Sunday evening because it was about the only time we get our schedules together, but that's just how it works out sometimes. But Andrew brought an interesting question to me, talking about this funny little acronym I hadn't heard before, even though I'm very familiar with the concept and the idea. And I thought it promoted a heck of a good question of, is the U.S. dollar in danger? So this is the appropriate moment for two things. First of all is the Simpsons meme where you got the kid on the back of the bus saying, "I'm in danger," because that's how I feel sometimes with psychopaths in our government. And the other thing is, we're not financial advisors. We don't give financial advice. We're not responsible if you decide to sink all of your money into something that leaves you broke and penniless. Please don't be angry at us. I am at best an above average informed novice when it comes to finances, even though it is a majority of my education. It's not something I've really been heavily invested in since college.
And when it comes to money, I'm just stupid.
No, I would, based on conversations you and I have had, like, you discount yourself. Like, you've got a better head on your shoulders than like 97% of our generation.
Yeah, sure. I'll let you have that one, I guess. Yeah, it's
as long as nobody looks in your gun safe, and then it's like, oh, you do make horrible financial decisions.
But those are things that can be traded down the road when our U.S. dollar completely takes a poop, and so yeah, yeah, I don't even know where to begin because it's just crazy. Because if you look at what's going on in the media, if you look at what's going on, Russia, Ukraine, just all that stuff aside, our economy. I mean, it's time to look internal, and it's time to look at what's going on in our border walls as loosely as they are right now. But they're working on I just read that Congress they're getting ready to vote on raising the debt ceiling. There's some stuff like they said, and there was two numbers that got thrown out. Either they're going to look at raising it to possible $47 trillion, or I think it was $53 trillion. And I'm like, why? Like, we're just going to keep bumping it up. I mean, eventually, I really feel like if they could get away with it, and I think because really the debt ceiling does not exist. I mean, they threaten it, and they cry, they use it as talking points when, hey, we need to get funding and this, and this. But what's the point of it what's the point of having the debt ceiling when you're just going to vote to raise it anyway? It's like you're just magic money. So, and that kind of brought up my conversation with you, my thought process of the topic for tonight. So,
well, and here's the funny thing specific to the debt ceiling, because like I find very often when I try to discuss macro level finances with people that aren't like in that world, they kind of get cross-eyed because it's not that people are stupid, even though I think our educational system desperately wants people to be stupid, because the less you understand about what your elected officials are doing, the less you can raise a stink about it. But that being said, the issue is, I think that you have to make an analog to the average person for them to understand what's really going on here. So, Andrew, you are my practice person. You're my use case right now. If you were raising the debt ceiling, it is because every available line of credit you have, credit cards, banks, whatever, your uncle, anybody that's loaning you money says, hey, dude, like, you're cut off. You're spending way too much money. You're into me too deep. I can't loan you any more money. You got to start paying the money back. And then we all get together and vote, no, Andrew gets a bigger line of credit because Andrew needs more money for guns and whatever. And all your creditors say, okay, we'll give you another 30 days. We'll give you another, $100 or whatever. And then you come back 30 days later, $100 further in debt and say, well, this really cool gun came out. I just need that one too. So you raise the debt ceiling again. And if this sounds like an unsustainable financial, you know, lifestyle, it is. When individuals do this, sooner or later, your creditors say no more and you go bankrupt and your stuff gets taken by the
Hmm.
government or by the courts because you have spent more money than you make for so long. You've gotten so eyeball deep in debt. You don't own anything. You don't own any of your stuff. You've just been making the payments on it. And very often when we're talking about credit cards and stuff, that minimum payment was just to keep up with the interest, if it was keeping up with the interest. So you get to a point where, in order to satisfy the principal owed, they seize the stuff. That is our financial system broken down to a single person to give you a metric. And when I put it to people like that, no rational, reasonable person believes that is sustainable, but that is precisely what our government has been doing for generations. Like this isn't a Democrat or Republican problem. This isn't a Biden, Trump, Obama, Bush problem. This has been going on since like our parents were born. This, if you look at what the GDP, what the total value of everything this country produces and everything this country is in dollars, if you look at that compared to what the government spends, it's been lopsided for generations. So when we are crashing headfirst into $53 trillion in debt not being enough, we didn't get here in one swoop, and it ain't you and me or our generation that did it all by ourselves. But unfortunately, I think it's our generation is going to pay for it. Because at the end of the day, like the remedy for this at an individual level is you cut off all your credit and you either start paying your debts or bad things happen.
Right.
And I don't see another remedy for I don't see another remedy for a country that's doing the same thing. Like the only other remedy is for the country that's in debt to tell everybody, piss off, I'm not paying you money back, and usually that results in war. Usually.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of like in a nutshell, that's how I see a lot of this. Like a conversation about the debt ceiling, on the one hand, if you're being rational and realistic, it has to eventually involve you cleaning up your house and you spending less money because you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip and you can't increase your GDP appreciably when you've offshored your ability to produce anything, which we have.
Yeah.
So the only other options other than increasing your GDP or decreasing your spending, neither of which I believe this country has a will to do, is to tell our creditors, the rest of the world, piss off, which is going to land us in the same situation that I think you're talking about when you bring up the BRICS currency and the BRICS nations. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just interesting because the U.S. for, I mean, years. I mean, we're approaching, and that's the thing that's scary is that the average lifespan of an empire is roughly 250 years, and we're not very far away from that at all. And so it's one of those things when you look at that, if you look at just history, because I believe history repeats itself. If you look at the cycle of rise and fall of empires and how they come to rise or how they come to power, their whole process of during their reign of power, what they do, and all of a sudden, what if you look at kind of things that uh, what bring them down as far as a superpower in general from the inside out, and that's kind of what we're doing right now. Like that's one of the biggest things that's happening with us. But financially, though, raising the debt ceiling and just printing more money, it does nothing except for to me, it weakens our dollar. And so BRICS is BRICS is an interesting concept that has come about over the last probably 10, 15 years or so, if not a little bit longer. But basically, BRICS it started out with the acronym of the founding countries of basically Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And then I believe it was in 2010 I was reading that South Africa was allowed to join, which that's where they got the S from. But if you look at Russia and China, I mean, how many years has Russia, China, and the U.S. been at odds? I mean, ever since I can literally remember. I mean, look at the Cold War and stuff like that with Russia. And if you look at right now with what's going on with Russia, the proxy war that the U.S. is fighting in Ukraine, putting troops on the ground in Ukraine, since that got leaked out, and it's something that we all knew about, but now the mainstream media is finally catching on because they can't hide it anymore. But the proxy war in Ukraine, and with us sitting there and like, okay, we're fighting Russia. We're basically trying to outspend Russia, outfight them, basically get them to where their people just don't even want to fight anymore. And we're pumping money into that over there into Ukraine. And then, but look, if you look at Russia, and there was a podcast I listened to from Sean Ryan. He had a guy from that former CIA agent, and he was talking about China, and everything he said, it lines up to, I mean, accurate. Where he says China right now is making calculated moves. If you look in the background, China doesn't do anything without thinking everything through. Like, and that's where people, when he talks, like he talked about COVID, and he was talking about how people were, well, China intentionally released COVID, and he goes, no, they did not. He says, I'm a firm believer that they did not intentionally release it. He goes, that's too much of a hey, look at me kind of thing. And that's not China. That's not how China operates. But what is operational is, were they developing it in the background? Possibly. But with China, if you look at what they're doing in the background, they're brokering peace deals with Iran and Saudi Arabia, like two people that hated each other, and they're brokering deals, peace deals. Afghanistan, they're going into Afghanistan, and they're working with the Taliban, and they're actually getting the mineral rights to everything there. Like, they're setting up, so they're working strategically behind the scenes, and they're trying to set things up. And to me, the U.S., it's like the U.S. can't fight on we can't fight two fronts, and so we're so busy with Russia. China, are they watching China? I'm sure they are. I can't believe two guys from a small show are like, hey guys, look at this. Did you see this yet? Pointing it out, but it's not being talked about. And then so now you have BRICS, which is it's a number of countries, and even now the BRICS, the bank itself has opened up to accept more people or more countries, and there's like 20 more countries that are stepping in line to saying, hey, we want to be a part of this. And those countries include Algeria, Argentina, Egypt, Iran, Mexico, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and a number of African countries, which is kind of scary to think.
Well, and the interesting part is, like, some of those nations historically have not had an antagonistic relationship with the U.S., but the majority of them have.
Mm-hmm.
And like, an argument can be easily made that we have pushed all these bedfellows together through our own constant attempt to meddle in foreign affairs. We've literally, I mean, we've pissed off so much of the world. Thank you, CIA. Please don't shoot my dog. I don't have one. But, we've pissed off so much of the rest of the world that we have an enormous target on our back, and there's tons of baked-in incentive for any one of these nations to take us down a peg. And now they're all jumping in bed together. Let me just sidebar this. Kyle Wilson, I haven't given a damn about the English throne or the monarchy in my entire life. And I don't think my parents did. Pretty sure my grandfather didn't either. Or his, or so on and so forth. The last time we gave a damn about English monarchs, we were shooting at them. That's been about where that starts and stops. But, yeah, man. I mean, and the worrying part is, like, what BRICS currency, or however you want to phrase this, whether you want to phrase it as an economic partnership, or if you want to phrase it as like a potential new currency, or even just a trade agreement between all these nations, What this has the potential to do is to supplant the US dollar as the nation's reserve currency. And that's where all these nations making moves together has the potential to really put this country and its population in a severe kink. Because, we over decades have offshored all of our production. We don't make much here in the U.S. The only thing we make here that there was, I don't know if there is anymore, but there was a worldwide desire for was our culture. We export, as stupid as silly as it sounds, like we export our culture. We export our music. We export our movies. We export our culture, and we export our dollars. But if our currency ceases to be the nation's reserve currency, and I believe what we are witnessing right now is a cultural reversal where, like, all this, a lot of what we've seen in like Disney and Hollywood and all this pandering to leftism and Marxism and woke nonsense, I feel like that's coming back to a head because like most people are not aware, but like when Disney started sending the last Star Wars trilogy over to China, they actually changed the movie poster because there's a black actor on it, and they didn't want him prominently shown. So like they are rejecting aspects of our culture even as they consume it. So I think once we wind up in the situation where our culture is no longer desirable and our currency is no longer desirable, we cease to be the biggest player in this game. And historically speaking, every time one nation has supplanted another as the greatest power in the world, it has always led to war. It has always led to war. And I don't mean just like what's going on in Ukraine, like a little proxy war, but like full-blown, kinetic, swinging for the fences war.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's if you just read or if you look at what's going on, I mean you see that happening right now. You see the possibility of World War III being very close and on our doorstep, closer than it ever has been in my lifetime. I know they constantly were scared, and during Russia and stuff for the Cold War and all that crap. But I think it's closer now. It's a lot. I think we're on the verge. Where it's going to lead, I don't know. And it's one of those things where if we're still busy fighting a war in Ukraine, pumping dollars over there, putting troops on the ground, when we say we're not, but putting, even if they're advisors, we still have troops on the ground. We're sending aid, millions or billions of dollars in aid that is getting funneled back to the Democratic Party through Zelensky. That's a whole other story. But just in general, the weapons and stuff that we're putting over there, the Abrams tanks now that we're shipping over there, where's the line in the sand? Where is it going to stop for one? But it's only a matter of time, and it's been talked about heavily is Taiwan. And China is going to move on Taiwan. It's only a matter of time. And it's a known thing that this is going to happen. They've not really been too quiet about it, but when anything happens with Taiwan, they kind of shake their sword a little bit and say, "Hey, knock it off. This is our territory," kind of thing. So that's the thing is, so when China takes over Taiwan and rolls them over, one, what are we going to do? Are we going to step in? Is the U.S. going to step in? And granted, we've been training the military over there for a very long time as well, under the table. And so I'm just curious, like it's just going to be interesting because you're basically going to put the United States on a two-front war in a way, and you're going to see what happens financially. And especially with our economy the way it is right now, interest rates the way they are, and they're going up. Where is it going to end? And that's where like my whole thought process is and the whole BRICS thing comes from, is these countries who we're going to be fighting against, they're already aligned. Like they're already they already have an understanding of, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is the currency we're going to trade under. This is everything that we need to do. We just need to take out the big brother and get them out of the picture, and then we can kind of move in and we can finally settle it out and trade how we want to. Because why do we have to use the U.S. dollar? Like and I think that's the biggest question that they're asking is like why do we have to use it? We don't have to. There's no reason why we have to use the U.S. dollar. It's just because this person is bigger and stronger and financially has a better economy. But if we do this, this, and this, we don't have to do that. We don't have to listen to them. And it's well, yeah, and that's what I believe is they're going to sit there and be like, hey, we have this, like we own this much of you, and we're going to call it in and we're going to stop supplying because we import so much from China right now. So it's like all they have to do if China really wants to really hurt us, all they have to do is stop supplying. Like just hey, no exports to the United States.
Yeah, and I think Joe might be onto something because, like, I don't think what's going to happen is that China is going to, like, Red Dawn and start dropping troops on us to raid the banks and take the cash home. Like, the real strength here is if they can call enough other countries together and say, we all have an accord, we are not going to act against each other's interests, and then at any point China just decides, we're not buying any more of your debt. Because like that's how this enormous shell game Ponzi scheme is really working, is that when we say raise the debt ceiling, we mean that the government is going to issue debt to other countries to purchase. And yes, I understand everybody's purchasing all this with fiat currency. Like I get it. The whole system from the word go, it sounds like a monopoly game. Because it kind of is, except somebody has a money printer in the back room, and every time they need a loan, they go get the the money printer fired back up. So it's like one of those funny situations where, like, yes, I understand that everything we're talking about here is a tiny little bit on the esoteric side because it's all monopoly money to begin with. But hear me out. If at any point China decides to stop purchasing our debt, and they go so far as to try to call those markers in, and we refuse. And why would we? Why wouldn't our nation refuse? Because we don't have the freaking money. We don't have it. We're barely making interest payments on this nonsense to keep blowing air into the balloon while it's got a hole in the other end of it. But if we tell them no, and they just say, screw it, no more exports, do they need us at this point? If they have invested enough money and time and effort into these other nations to enrich them sufficiently that they are now customers of all the stuff China produces, like, you have to bear in mind that you have to reach a certain level of economic prosperity as a nation before you are in the market for certain things. Like, a country with a GDP 1% of what ours is, their people are not buying iPhones. They can't afford them. A year of their labor does not offset, no matter what monetary exchange you want to use, doesn't offset the value of a Samsung phone or whatever China's version of an iPhone is. It doesn't offset it. So you have to enrich that country to a certain point. Again, take this out of the whole country thing and take it to you and me. If I am dirt poor and I make right at the poverty level, then I am not a customer of Toyota in the brand new car market. Their cars are too expensive. I can't afford them. Doesn't matter how good they are. I have to enrich myself to a certain point before I'm in the market to be buying a new Toyota. Now, if Toyota wants more customers, they have two options. Either A, you figure out a way to get your vehicles cheaper, and the manufacturers do that because they make smaller vehicles for, people with less financial means, or you figure out a way to make the people make more money so they can afford your product at the given cost. China's doing that. They're investing in other nations. They're trying to pump money and resources into these other nations to build them up sufficiently to be their customer. So when the day comes that they finally decide to flip the switch and tell us, buzz off, pay your debts, or you don't get your stuff, then as long as they have an existing trade base, they don't need us anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And, like I've warned for years about the fact that China was obviously manipulating their currency value. They were obviously doing everything within their power to extract wealth from our country time after time after time. The trade deals were so lopsided, it was obvious. Trump, for all of his iniquities and as much as he aggravated a lot of people, the one great thing he did was redo all of our trade deals, and he tried to balance those scales. He's probably the only president in my lifetime that ever did. But here we are. There is a new cabinet installed. They have new ideas, and they want things to be status quo as they always have been. And we are rocketing towards a cliff that I don't know that we can slam the brakes on hard enough to get away from at this point. Like
And
you mentioned earlier about the Federal Reserve increasing interest rates, that's coming. They're going to do it or else. Like they have a gun to their head at this point. They have to do it. They have anesthetized the U.S. population with the opium of cheap interest rates and cheap credit for so long that they don't have a choice anymore. They have to increase interest rates. And like, I don't want to get into it quite this early in the show, but like you and I talked right before we started recording about what that is going to mean for the average person to have to respond to what is about to become a very changing financial picture in this country.
yeah, and that's the thing is, where do you go from here? I mean, with bricks, and that's what I'm saying. It's just it's keep an eye on it, do your own research on it, but look into it, and it's something to keep on your radar. It's not being talked about very much right now in the media, and it's interesting because it's almost like they're trying to keep it out of people's minds that there's a group of other countries, other governments that are trying to undermine our dollar, undermine our, which I mean, and granted, that's the way the cookie crumbles. I guess you want to put it that way. It's our government has always they're constantly trying to undermine other governments, and they are trying to do it to us, and it's a back and forth battle. But they don't. It's one of those things where I really feel like the possibility that people won't be able to get the money on their bridge cards for the next month, I really feel like they don't want to put that out there and create fear because you're gonna have people they're gonna start panicking. So and they don't want to cause that panic. So on one hand, yeah, I can see that, but on the other hand, they're not reporting on it, and it's just kind of fishy because it's like this is something that the people should know about, and so look into it. But what can you do in the meantime? And that's again, I mean, coming back to our roots of preparedness and self-sufficiency, self-sufficiency, and stock up on get that food pantry stocked up. Get buckets of if you want to buy Mountain House, buy Mountain House. If you want to buy August Farms, buy that. I don't care what you got to do, or do you want to go to Walmart and put together your own buckets? Have a mix. I don't care. Have food, water. I mean, if you want to start get canned goods, tangible goods are going to be something that can be, especially if you read a lot of the books, like if you read a lot of post-apocalyptic books, a lot of them have one of the biggest things in common, and it's just the trade value of certain things. Some of them that when they go to that down that rabbit hole, they're trading in clothing, they're trading in shoes for kids, they're trading in bullets, they're trading in gold, silver. They're trading in really anything that they can trade. If you can sit there and, hey, I have this glass and I want this, whatever, if you can say this glass is worth this much or it does this and it holds water better than this over here, or like whatever, if you can sell that, then you're going to that's bartering. But, and do I think we're there yet? No, I don't think we're there yet. Are we going to be there soon? Are we going to be there soon? I don't think we're going to be there soon. Are we heading that way? I really believe that we are heading to a situation to where we're going to be you're going to see food lines. You're going to see bread lines. You're starting to see it in certain countries that are getting affected pretty heavily in their economy and stuff like that. But um, that's something that I don't want to really live through. I want to be prepared for that. So if I have 6 months of rations, or 6 months of food, or a year of food, whatever, uh, that's more food that I can keep and not have to stand in line and become a victim of something possibly, because I can tell you right now, if especially the way the U.S. currency and stuff is going, especially if we go digital with a digital currency, the government, they're going to be in charge of these bread lines. They're in charge of food, distributing food and stuff like that. If they sit there and they have the system and say, well, we see that you didn't match this certain criteria or whatever, and they decide not to give you your piece for your food for the night, I'm like, what do what are you going to do? And so this goes far beyond uh, the crumble of our economy and our dollar that's in the future. But yeah, just get yourself ready.
Well, and I would say that well ahead of the situation you're talking about, which I don't discount. And like you and I have always been proponents of people having bare minimum necessities for a period of time in their homes. And there's really no good justification not to. Like that's what I try to tell people is like when they get all wrapped around the axle about, well, you're talking about like something that's never going to happen. And then my immediate retort is, have you ever lost your job? Have you ever been short on cash? Have you ever have you ever gotten locked out of your bank account? Those situations happen to people every damn day. They've all happened to me. I've lost my job. I've had $5 to make it a week till the next payday. I've had my banking information stolen and I went to swipe a debit card and that checking account said negative several $100s. And yes, it got straightened out, but at that exact moment, I had no way to buy groceries except that I had cash and except that I had groceries at home and so on and so forth. So like my gut reaction is always there's no justification not to do these things unless you like being the person who goes home and doesn't eat or goes home and tells your wife and kids, sorry honey, we have nothing to eat. Like there's no justification not to stock food, not stock water, not to have ways to take care of yourself and your family. There's no good reason not to do it. Now, all of that being said, what I think is going to happen, way ahead of the point you're talking about, is the Fed is going to have to raise interest rates. There's no avoiding that. It is so far overdue. It is so long overdue. It's going to have to happen sooner or later. And the longer they put it off, the worse it's going to hurt, and the higher they're going to have to raise them all at once. Is it going to throw our economy into a tailspin like it ain't already? Possibly. But what it's going to do also is, like, Andrew, you became a homeowner and bought a new vehicle fairly recently. Like within the last, well, you just bought a new vehicle just a couple months ago. Yeah, you've been a homeowner about a year. Like, you're intimately aware of what interest rates are right now. And interest rates are already higher than when I bought my vehicle several years ago, and when I bought my home, or the last time I refinanced my home, it's been several years, because I saw interest rates bottoming out, and I was telling, like, you can be my witness. I was telling friends of ours, other preppers, hey guys, if you're thinking about getting into home ownership, you better get your stuff together and do it right now, because interest rates are not going to be this low again, maybe in our lifetime. They're gonna go up, and they have gone up. They haven't doubled, they haven't gone crazy, but they're going up. But as those interest rates continue to go up, several things are going to happen all at the same time. First of all, the ability of people to get lines of credit is going to constrict, meaning if you have less than perfect credit, if you have a very lopsided debt to income ratio, any of those situations that normally you would have had to tolerate a higher interest rate, you're not going to be able to get entry. You're not going to be able to get credit. Or it's going to be at such an obnoxiously high interest rate, you will wish you hadn't done it. So that is going to mean there will be fewer homes purchased, there will be fewer new cars purchased, fewer used cars purchased. Things like commodities and goods that are commonly bought on credit, and even though I think this is insane and stupid, living room sets, large appliances, freaking, consumer electronics, things that are purchased on store credit even, that credit's going to get harder to get a hold of. That's going to slow down sales in all those different sectors. That's going to result in either loss of hours or loss of wages or loss of job within the retail sector, which is a huge component of our national industry. Like, I'm talking about things I've talked about before, and it's frustrating because I don't think our entire economy should be based on selling stuff to each other. Like, we should be making stuff here in the U.S., but regardless, I don't get to make that call. That's where we're at. And raising interest rates is going to trickle into all those different sectors. It has to. It's going to friggin' raise your interest rate on credit cards. It has to. But here's the crippling part of all this. It's not just going to impact individual finances, it's going to impact business finances too. So a lot of people don't understand that, like large commercial farmers, a lot of them don't have like a freaking $1 million sitting there in cash to go and by the way, we have a friend who's a commercial farmer. I got this right out of his mouth because it scared me when I heard it, but it makes a certain amount of sense. Most commercial farmers don't have $1 million to go buy the seed and the friggin' herbicide, the pesticide, the freaking fertilizer, the diesel. They don't have the money sitting there in their bank account to buy all this stuff to make a harvest happen. They have to go get it on credit. And then hopefully the harvest is good enough to make enough money to pay back the loan plus some extra. Well, when the interest rate on those loans goes up, and these are the people making our food, by the way, what do you think is going to wind up happening? Like, I'm trying to, it sounds like I'm being Chicken Little and saying the sky is falling, but I'm really trying to get y'all to understand that raising interest rates is not a one-dimensional, oh, my loan rate's going to go up 1%. It's not that simple. It is a huge issue. It is going to touch major sections of the U.S. population. It's going to impact us financially for a generation. And in spite of all that, it has to happen. It has to. We as a society have lived too much on debt and too much on credit and interest rates for entirely too long. We've gotten way too used to swiping a credit card and not saving our money as an individual, as families, as states, as a nation. And the gravy train is about to slam off the tracks. So, how do individuals deal with all that? Boys and girls, if you don't have your financial house in order, if the way you get through the next payday is with a credit card, if you don't save money for that next car payment or that next down payment on something, if you're not used to the idea that you might have to go save the money for that big screen TV instead of buying it friggin' at Best Buy for 12 months interest free or whatever, you're about to go through a radical reorganization of your lifestyle. And it's going to be painful.
Yeah.
Probably necessary, maybe even a growing experience, but it's going to suck in the meantime. Any of that sounded like wildly out of line, Andrew? Because like this is stuff I've been warning people about for at least as long as this podcast has been around. And I usually get like, the eyes crossed whenever I start talking about finances and economy, and I'm like, all things are cyclical.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I mean, and we keep going back to the preparedness side or the self-sufficiency side of it. How do you get away from doing this? Well, if you have a large family, I understand it's harder, but if you can go and you can manage and you can buy enough food for say a week or two, depending on the size of your family and stuff like that, and the money available, but if you can do that to where, okay, I don't have to buy food for this entire week or this one, for 2 weeks or whatever. And okay, so now that money that I would spend going to the store 3 days a week, okay, now I can take that money and put that towards savings. I can put that towards a bill. I can put that towards something else. And granted, I mean, and the crazy thing is when you look at food, the price of food, if you pay attention to what it is on a weekly basis, it's almost scary.
I went to the grocery store today. I kind of felt like I got beat up and mugged in an alley.
Yeah, it's insane. And think about that in a month or two down the road. But I don't want to beat the horse too much over it, but it's just one of those things where figure out where you can start putting stuff away. Figure out where you can start preparing, or because if you can't right now, figure out where you can start a little bits at a time. It'll add up. It's like if you save $1 a day, it adds up over time, over 365 days. Like it adds up. If you put $20 away a day or whatever, it adds up. And that's where like Phil and I, that's where I think we're going with this is whatever you can do now to better set yourself up for tomorrow, it adds up. And it may not, if you put one box away of macaroni cheese, and it doesn't seem like that much, but if you do it every single day, if you do at least, even if you go grocery shopping once a week, and you're like, I'm gonna buy 10 boxes. I'll put 5 on the shelf for the kids. I'll put 5 on the shelf downstairs, and you do that, it adds up, and then you're like, okay, I have a month's worth of macaroni and cheese. My kids are happy, even though that's not something that they should be eating every day, all day long, but it is
I
calories.
mean,
So at the end of the day, so.
dude, mac and cheese and chicken nuggets, like that sounds like a good time to me, and I'm a full grown adult.
Dude, chicken nuggets are my jam.
But and just an inch past savings, like let's talk about some lifestyle changes that people are going to have to make. I would say this: these are lifestyle changes that, like, if the situation we're talking about comes to pass and it's as bad as I think it might be, these changes are going to happen whether you like them or not. Like, you're not going to have a choice. But if you choose to participate in them now, it will help you infinitely. This is a secret. This is a special thing to help us later. Like, if you are remotely handy, if you know how to do basic home repairs, if you know how to do basic work around your house, if you can mend fences, if you can paint your own room, if you can repair footboards and trim around your house, if you can do basic electrical work, I have saved myself a small fortune in this house by doing my own minor plumbing work, like fixing toilets when they go bad. Recently, I had a sink that had a slow drip in the guest bathroom. Now, it isn't exactly like the cost of having to replace all the plumbing and the faucet and everything is like going to be crippling for the average American, but for 1/20th the cost of replacing the faucets, I went and got a couple of small parts, some gaskets, some O-rings, some springs, and I refurbished it, and the drip stopped. Now, not only did I do the work myself, so I saved all the labor costs, but the parts I put into it I think I wound up spending like $7. And that's not like Amazon prices. That's like go to Lowe's and, pay for like legit Delta branded stuff to make sure it fit right the first time and was good quality. I've saved myself a small fortune by replacing like electrical outlets around the house and replacing fans and replacing light fixtures, because it's not that freaking difficult to take the stuff down. Don't electrocute yourself, please. And then like connect the new stuff with the little twisty connectors for a house. It's not that difficult, but you could save yourself an incredible amount of money if you just do the work yourself. It doesn't take a ton of tools or a ton of knowledge. YouTube, people. YouTube University is like the running gag of our generation, but it's the truth. You can find anything on the internet. All the information that like our parents used to teach us is available on the internet. All you have to do is just Google it, for God's sakes. I saved myself a ton of money working on my own vehicles, and I understand not everybody has, thousands of dollars worth of tools and everything to do their own work on your vehicles. But if you would go someplace and pay a mechanic to change your air filter, you can do that in your driveway and it doesn't cost you a penny. You can top off your own fluids. You can save yourself the cost and the aggravation of blowing a tire up if you would just get an air pressure gauge and check your tire pressure every now and then. Like, there's so many ways we can save ourselves money by doing the work ourselves and by taking personal accountability of all these kinds of things. And then to go one little step further, I have talked before about how I personally consider credit cards to be like an evil perpetrated upon people. I think the idea of paying anywhere from 12 to 20% interest on debt is the most nauseating thing I've ever heard in my life, and I swear it's designed to keep poor people poor forever. Like, if that makes me sound like a little bit of a crazy leftist, then okay, I own that. I'm a libertarian at heart, and I think if you want to make horribly crippling financial decisions, you should be allowed to, but I still think it's predatory in nature and disgusting. So, if you can get your credit cards paid off and stop using them, you will save yourself hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a year just in interest payments. If you can discipline yourself not to go to Best Buy and get the huge 50 or whatever inch plasma TV that costs $2,000, by the way, and then pay interest on the principal for the next 12 months, if you can do that, and you may do with a smaller TV that you can pay for in cash, You can laugh all the way back to the bank. We people, we prepper minded, we survivalists, we self-reliant people have got to get our heads back around this idea that if I can't pay for it in cash and I'm not going to die tomorrow without it, I probably don't need it. And like, yes, I'd be the first to admit there are exceptions to every rule. There are certain things that it makes sense to go into debt for, like a reliable vehicle or a house. Sometimes you just have to kind of suck that up and deal with it. And especially seeing as how, like, you and I both know, I'm about to go into a not inconsequential amount of debt. Not debt. I'm about to spend a not inconsequential amount of money for something that I believe will enhance my family's preparedness dramatically. Yeah. But that being, and we have a friend, by the way, who said years and years ago, there were certain things he would absolutely put on a credit card for 20% interest because they are that important to have. Like, money no object, it has to be done. And I agree with that to a degree. But we have to start asking really hard questions about where we're spending our money as individuals. I was reading an article the other day, Andrew, and you tell me if you think this is off base. It scared the hell out of me to hear it. It was an article about DoorDash and Uber Eats and all these different services that will, like, they'll go to McDonald's and they'll bring you your chicken nuggets, deliver it to your door. And it was talking about how most of these companies, they actually upcharge the food itself before they put the delivery charge and everything on it, before you tip the driver. And it was talking about how if you use a food delivery service twice a week, you can literally double what the average family of three's grocery bill is a week, just ordering out twice a week. And it was one of the most sobering, one of the most terrifying moments when I finally realized that, like, I look around, because I'm a people watcher at the end of the day. I look around at people my generation and younger, people that are like anywhere from 35 down to about 20, and I see them eating out constantly. They're always at PJ's. They're always in the drive-thru. They're always getting food delivered. And I started adding up the dollar amount involved there, and it sobered me to realize that maybe part of the reason why some people are always broke and some people always seem to have their financial house in order is because I go to the grocery store and I buy food and I come home and cook for my family. My wife does too. We both believe in limiting eating out for financial reasons, if nothing else. Because it's 60 or $70 for the three of us to go eat out almost anywhere. And, you know, for double that, I can go make a grocery run, come home with meat, cheese, eggs, butter, dairy, anything we can think of, and I can cook here at the house. I mean, my wife was in the mood for Mexican food tonight. Guess who went to the store and bought stuff and came home and made, you know, queso and steak fajitas. And did it a lot cheaper than what it would have cost me to go buy tacos at, you know, our local taco place. It's just... These are all. This isn't me saying, don't go out, don't have fun, don't enjoy the fruits of your labor, guys. This is just me saying that, like, it would be in everyone's best interest to start asking really serious questions about where's my money going, and start asking really serious questions about what do I value, what is worth spending that money on, and if I spend it here, is that a wise investment of that dollar? Because if you don't start asking that question now and things turn bad, you're going to be forced to make that decision when you'd rather not.
Right.
And since Joe Oliveira brought it up, here's the thing, Joe. It's not even just like specific to armor. I would say that everything in finances, because like I very rarely give straight answers when it comes to family finances. Everything is about trade-offs. And like Andrew and I have had this conversation a long time ago when he and I were talking about like the benefits of like saving for retirement, spending money on this, and you know, it's not like I'm going to tell Andrew how to spend his money. He's a grown-ass man, but I care about the guy, so I like to give free advice that people are free to ignore. But spending money for personal enjoyment versus squirreling away every dollar you have in your retirement account, that's trade-off. either way. Like, if you never have fun and you make it to retirement age with a full bank account, I think your life's a little less fulfilling than it would have been if you'd have had a little bit of fun along the way. And if you don't save for retirement and you have lots of fun, guess what happens when you turn 65 and you're too old to work? You're screwed. So there's got to be a balance. It's a trade off. Now, if you value this thing, this prep for your family, more than you value a what's the word I'm looking for here? Comparable amount in your retirement account, for example, then yeah, makes sense. Spend the money. Get the prep for your family. But that's the way you have to look at these decisions. If I spend this money on this, I don't have it over here. And I would agree with what someone else is saying in the chat. Your 401k is trash. My 401k is trash. Andrew's just probably trash. Anybody that has a 401k, your 401k is on life support right now. I have like 12 different funds I can invest my money in my 401k. Only one of them is positive right now. The other 11 are all negative, and most of them are double-digit losses. So, like, I could put $1 in one of these funds and get 90 cents next month. It's that bad. So, from that perspective, I wouldn't personally believe that. I wouldn't personally believe that, like, pumping money in your 401k and your retirement accounts right now, I wouldn't say it's a bad idea, but I certainly wouldn't prioritize it over getting your house in order. And I will commend you, Joe. There is always an argument to be made that training is worth the money. Good training is always worth the money. Good training is better than anything you would buy, because learning how to do something beats having the stuff and not the knowledge every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
But to kind of start wrapping it up and then bringing it back to our topic, the U.S. dollar, it is not doing good. I mean, and that's the thing though. We're used to 10 years ago when you could go to your local supermarket, spend $100, and you got a lot of food, you got a lot of supplies. Now, I can easily go in, and depending on what I buy, I could easily spend $100 on just a few things, and food being one of them, and just the price of meat right now is crazy. And so that kind of goes into what you're talking about, Phil, is, choose where you want to put that money. If you want to sit there and you want to buy supplies, if you want to buy extra food, extra canned food, extra buckets of Mountain House, whatever, to put aside versus going out, so if you can sit there and say, hey, I like going out. I like getting fast food. I like my Mexican fast food, stuff like that, just as much as the next guy, really. I've cut down on it because of needing to pay for a house and pay for now a truck and trying to do mods to the truck that I want to still try to keep up with. I want to have fun. I still want to put supplies to the down in the basement and get stuff for a rainy day. But it's like, okay, one day every couple of weeks, I'll pick a day and maybe, hey, I'm going to go get Taco Bell or something, or I'm going to get just McDonald's, or I'm going to get something, or I'm going to go to, a different fast food joint and get something else. But you do that every once in a while. If you cut that down, because our dollar is trash right now, we as Americans and us we have to live in the real world and not just the ivory tower where some people do, is we have to sit there and we have to make that choice of, okay, I want armor. I want to upgrade my armor. I want something else. I want a new gun. I want to put 2 months worth of food in the basement. Okay, what do I got to do with that? I got to figure out how much it's going to cost me. Okay, so what do I got to do that? Donate plasma? Great alternative. If it means, okay, you know what, I'm going to eat, I'm not going to go out this many times this week. Okay, I'm going to quit drinking for like a couple weeks or a month. And the money that I would take if I go out to the bar or go buy a fifth or do something, I guess it makes you sound like an alcoholic saying it that way, but take that money and put it aside. Put it in a jar, put it in an envelope, put it somewhere else. So take that money that you would originally spend going out doing something and put it away, put it aside. And then over time, like I said before, everything adds up. So over time, you're like, okay, cool, I can upgrade my hard plates to ceramic, or my heavy steel plates to like ceramic or polyethylene or or something. Oh, I can get this gun. Oh, I can get this 2 months worth of food. I can, spend the $200 and get the 2 months worth of food and have down in the basement. So, yeah, sacrifice it. I mean, and granted, this is coming from a single guy. I have no kids and stuff like that, or anybody depending on me really. A family such as what Phil has, and a lot of our listeners and stuff, what they have, it is harder, but it helps to have that spouse on board with this. And if you guys can come to us, say, hey, we're going to focus on this and this month, and next month let's reward ourselves for a day or two, and then we can get back to focusing on this and this, and setting food aside and setting supplies aside, so that hopefully the day never comes. But it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when that day does come. We have enough food down in the basement to where we're not panicking. We don't have to get in the bread lines. We don't have to require we're self-sufficient, where we don't have to worry about the government and stuff like that. So, you know, I, it's just one of those things where we just need to start watching ourselves even more, uh, and just getting ready for what's coming. And I mean, we all see it. There's a lot of us that do see it, the writing on the wall. I can't see how people aren't seeing it right now. But some people aren't. Some people are living in that tower and they're like, hey, my life is great. I'm getting my food stamps every month. My EBT card is getting filled, all this other crap, until the day that it doesn't get filled. And then you're going to see you panicking when it goes south. So,
Well, and let me just say, to double down on that as we kind of walk this one out. But I mean, what it boils down to is very simple. The whole reason why Andrew and I have been such proponents of people being armed and getting training and being prepared to defend yourself and your family individually is because no one will fight harder to protect your family or yourself than you will. Nobody will. Yeah, nothing against cops. Cops have no constitutional duty to defend anybody. And they, except for like innate, love of their fellow man and morality, they don't really have any incentive to, at the end of the day. I hate to say it that way, but they don't. No one is going to fight harder than you will to maintain your own life. And when the chips are down, when it's either you going to meet your maker or your family going to meet their maker, you should be willing and able to fight like the third monkey on the ramp of the ark, and the rain has started. Like, it should be that way. And this is exactly the same thing in a slightly different vein. No one is going to worry more about you or your family eating than you will. The government certainly doesn't care. FEMA has proven time after time they're wholly incapable of managing any kind of a widespread disaster. The frickin' government can't administer a food stamp program properly without turning that into a walking dumpster fire. So what on earth makes you think that the state or any of its agents are capable or concerned about you getting a meal before bedtime? They don't care. And even if individuals do, the system as a whole is not designed to do it. So if you like to eat, and if you can't tell by my midsection, I love tacos as much as the next person, then you probably need to start putting back some, extra tortillas and some extra packs of ground beef for tacos when things get shifty. I mean, it's just all there is to it. And there's no downside to it, guys. But I don't want to beat the dead horse anymore. We already have. The poor thing has stopped whinnying and turned into glue already, which Andrew warned me not to do. But, when we get talking about a subject that drives me crazy or scares the hell out of me, I get very talkative. But that's, I guess, what I would say is like the time to get your financial house in order, it's always right now. It's only going to get worse if you don't do it, and it's not going to start getting better until you start. And financial prepping is no different than putting food away in the pantry. You start when you make a small change, you get things moving in a positive direction, you keep up the hard work, and eventually things turn around and you profit from that. But like, you never get to the point of financial security and financial independence without first having to make hard decisions about how do I spend my money, where does it go, where does it enrich me and benefit me, and like what juice is truly worth the squeeze. So I would say that if your money's going hand over fist into credit cards and Uber Eats, knock that crap off and please go get a Dave Ramsey book and start paying attention.
Yeah.
Yep. You're
Yep.
so tired of listening to me blow my horn about finances, aren't you? I know I am.
No, just get get on that self sufficiency train, and just be ready for what's coming. It might not be prepare for the what is it? Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. That's where I'm leaving us, because that's truly what we need to start doing. That's what we always do when you're putting stuff aside for a rainy day. Um, but hopefully it won't be as bad as people say it could be. But you never know until we get there, and we're not. I don't think we're that far away. So everybody, I
Yep.
hope you all have a good night.
Yep. And by all means, if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, you could drop something in the comments. We'll get back to you. If you don't subscribe to our Instagram channel, you should. I've been putting in extra effort on Instagram, and occasionally I am either mildly antagonistic or slightly hilarious, depending on my mood. If I do say so myself, nobody laughs at my jokes, not even my wife. I don't know why y'all would, but every now and then it might be entertaining. And we are currently trying to push this stream out on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and now Rumble. So wherever you happen to be, you can probably leave us your thoughts, and we will do our best to get back to you. And if you're listening to this on the audio podcast and you ever want to see what these two knuckleheads actually look like, behind the camera, which we're not much to look at, but I think it adds something to show to see our expressions as we're losing our freaking minds. You can check any of those streaming platforms and come and see us. Matter of fact, podcast heading out the door. Good night.
Good night.